There are certain Transformer figures where you look at the renders and think, wow, that looks incredible. And then there are figures where you start seeing the actual physical prototype and realize, wait, they might actually be pulling this off. And that is exactly where we are with MysticMecha MYM-01 Honey Warrior. If you have been following this project, you already know I have been extremely excited about this Bumblebee for a while. The renders and early teasers already pointed toward one of the most accurate and ambitious Bayverse Bumblebees we have ever seen. But the big question was always the same. How much of this would actually survive the jump into the real world? Because anyone can make a great render, or people thinks. And the real challenge is turning that into a functioning figure, printing the parts, assembling them, getting the joints and transformation to work, and still reserving the proportion and accuracy that made the design stand out in the first place. Well, we're finally getting the answer. The design is now complete, and the first physical parts are being printed and assembled into a working prototype. And honestly, what we're seeing is not just matching the renders, it's making the project even more exciting. So let's break down what we know so far, because this is quickly becoming a very different kind of Bumblebee project. The Honey Warrior is becoming real. MysticMecha is no longer adjusting the core concept. The focus has shifted to printing and assembling the actual part for testing. And we have already seen physical components alongside the original renders. That comparison alone is one of the most satisfying parts of this update. Watching something we have only seen digitally finally take shape in the real world. Especially because this project has always had skepticism around it. And fairly so. We have all seen cases where renders look incredible, but the final figures just didn't match that. Whether in proportion, articulation, or transformation, or just the quality. So, some people say the renders don't mean anything until it's physical. That argument is partially valid. But now we're at the stage. Parts are being printed, they're being assembled, and they're being tested and transformed. And so far, the result looks surprisingly strong. One detail worth clearing up immediately, the current prototype stands at around 19cm, while the final figure is still planned to be at around 17.6cm, matching the MPM scale. The reason for the difference is purely practical. The prototype has been slightly upscaled to accommodate printing tolerance and makes the testing easier during this stage. It is not the final scale, and honestly that's completely fine. At this point, what matters more is whether the engineering worked at all. Because once everything is scaled down, that's where the real challenge begins. Tighter tolerance, smaller joints, and less room for error. But for now, the foundation seems solid, and that is the important part. One of the most encouraging updates is that the transformation, especially the upper body, is reportedly smoother than expected, and that matters a lot. Because this is not a simple design. We're talking about a highly detailed movie-accurate Bumblebee with complex panels, piston, armor pieces, and vehicle components all needing to move cleanly into place. Despite that, MysticMecha has said the upper body transformation feels good, and the leg transformation is also coming together well. In fact, the legs reportedly transform in just a few minutes and feel very satisfying to handle. The full figure is expected to land somewhere around 80 transformation steps. Not officially counted though, so this is definitely not a quick flip and done figures. But that's actually a good thing. If the steps are logical and satisfying, complexity becomes part of the fun rather than frustration. And so far, that balance seems to be working. And the articulation is next level. This is where Honey Warrior really starts to stand out. We're getting butterfly shoulder joints, deep ankle articulation, drop down hips, highly mobile waist, and extreme leg range of motion. The hip system in particular is impressive, using a double-hinged drop-down mechanism that allows Bumblebee to achieve around 120 degrees of side kick and nearly full forward leg extension, even with all the surrounding mechanical detail. That's a huge range for fully transformable figures packed with an internal structure. And then there's the toe articulation. It sounds minor, but it's actually one of the most expressive features on the figures. It dramatically improves the balance, crouching pose, and those iconic Bumblebee landing stands. It's one of those details you don't think about it until you try posting without it. Now facial expression matters too. Another standout feature is the articulated jaw. No, this isn't for speech or gimmick. is purely for expression, and that actually makes a lot of sense for Bumblebee, who use facial movement throughout the film to communicate emotion, especially in non-verbal scenes. With a movable jaw, you can push that even further in displays and photography, like angry pose, shouting expression, or subtle emotional shot. It's a small addition that adds a lot of character. What really makes this project interesting is how all of this articulation has to coexist with transformation. For example, the waist is directly connected to the torso rather than using a simple rod system like the older MPM-03 design. That suggests a more integrated internal structure. We're also expecting a partially die-cast skeleton, which should help support the weight and complexity of the figures. And that's important, because this isn't a lightweight shell-based design. It needs a strong internal frame to support everything happening on the outside. It's also important to remember that this is still a working prototype. Some details like the wing positioning aren't final. In some cases, jaws have loosened due to the repeated testing, which is affecting alignment and movement, and that's normal at this stage. Some parts are still being printed, and some aren't fully installed, and others are being adjusted in real time. We're essentially watching the figure evolve piece by piece. One of the most satisfying parts about this update is seeing how closely the physical part match the original renders. MysticMecha has even stated that the renders were designed to translate directly into the final products, and so far, that claim is holding up. The shape, proportion, and mechanical details are all carrying over into physical form. At this point, the renders aren't just concept art anymore. They're effectively the blueprint for real functioning figures. Small details but with big impact. Even tiny design choices show how intentional this project is. For example, the door handles aren't just added for realism. They design around a movie CGI model, which doesn't always follow real-world car logic. That kind of attention to detail is what separates a generic Bumblebee figures from a true screen-accurate interpretation. Even the rear car panel alignment is being refined, with current mismatch likely due to incomplete assembly rather than the final design flaw. This is potentially getting really serious. It's still too early to call this the definitive Bumblebee. We haven't seen the final material, final paint, full QC or long-term durability. And those factors still matter a lot, yes. But the potential here is becoming hard to ignore. We're looking at a highly accurate Dark of the Moon Bumblebee, full transformation system, modern articulation package, extreme possibility, expressive head design, die-cast internal structure, and complex but functional engineering. All in the figures around 17.6cm tall, slightly taller than MPM-03B. That's a lot of ambition packed into a very small frame. And it feels like this project is directly addressing every limitation older MPM-style Bumblebee had one by one. And it may not stop here. MysticMecha has also confirmed plans for the 2007 and Revenge of the Fallen version of Honey Warrior in the future. If the Dark of the Moon version succeeds, this could turn into a full Bumblebee lineup built on the same engineering foundation. And given how difficult it's been for companies to nail even one red Bayverse Bumblebee, that's a very exciting possibility. So, what makes this update so exciting is the shift in what we're actually seeing. We're no longer just looking at renders and concepts. We're seeing physical parts, working joints, real transformation tests, early prototype assembly, and in some cases, the engineering is already exceeding expectation. That's a huge step forward, and of course, final judgment still depends on the completed prototype and production version. QC material and durability will ultimately decide everything. But right now, the direction is extremely promising. And if MysticMecha can carry this level of execution through the final release, then we might genuinely be looking at one of the most impressive MPM-style Bumblebee figures ever made. Maybe even the best yet. But now I want to hear from you. After seeing the prototype take shape, has the MPM-01 Honey Warrior become your most anticipated Bumblebee figures? And if the final version delivers on everything we have seen so far, could this finally set a new benchmark for Bayverse Bumblebee figures? Let me know in the comments.